huge part of the story, not just in Jacksonville, but across the Southeast. It's going to be hot, if not record-breaking today. The record to break in Jacksonville is 95 degrees. That was set back in 1973. We're going 95 degrees, so here we go. The heat is on, tying a record today. We actually set one yesterday at 94, and it's not the only spot.
No, it isn't. Look at Jacksonville, Orlando, Daytona, and Savannah. All could be breaking records through the day today. So the question is, what's going to cause all this record-breaking heat?
I'm going to take you to the science behind the heat. So we look at some of the ingredients in the atmosphere out there. You need to have a large-scale weather pattern like we have with a big ridge of high pressure. That setup, it's a classic situation for heat.
Also, cloud-free skies, and we are going to get that thanks to the high pressure. So let's show you what that means. So here's our high pressure. This allows the warm air to go north as far as the ridge goes, and also it suppresses the air, and that gives us clear skies.
So we're going to have clear skies right through the day. There's actually been a little bit of cloud cover moving into parts of the southeast. If you have too much clouds, of course, that would cut down on your temperatures. But when you look at the forecast, we've got a lot of cloud-free skies coming away, and with high pressure overhead, you would expect that, right, Steph? Because you've got the sinking air.
Right. So what causes an actual high pressure is winds come in aloft, and they push all the molecules in the atmosphere down to the ground. So you measure actually a higher pressure. In order to get clouds, you need lift, and we're not getting that. So that's why we're not seeing the clouds.
All right. So, and also sinking air happens to be warmer air. So there's a couple of factors into warming up this air today. One, of course, is the high pressure, the lack of clouds. This is the forecast for this afternoon. 0% clouds in Charleston, Tallahassee, Orlando. I mean, there's not many days in Orlando you can say that you're going to have blue sky, right?
No, that is very true.
In May.
We'll go back there live with Mike Seidel a little bit later. A couple other things that are going to help us out here. The sun angle and also the moisture content. This time of year, you have very high sun angle.
Yes, yes. We'll take a look at that. And the soil is the ground. Everything's so dry. We've had a very dry spring. And so getting into the next couple of days, that's going to be a factor in the heat. Let's talk about that sun angle. So we're almost at the summer solstice, about a month away from that. We're about as high in the sky as the sun gets. 90 degrees will be right overhead. Yeah. And we are, close to 82 degrees.
There you go. I mean, in Florida, this is our average this time of year. We should be basically mid to upper 80s for our highs.
All right, so take a look at the soil moisture. That's the other thing that's a big factor. The amount of moisture in the soil is like what we have in the Southwest. I was comparing the two. I mean, you think of the desert Southwest and you think of dry. You don't think of Florida with that, but that is what we have because of the lack of rain.
And dry air can heat up and cool off faster than moist air, and usually we're moderated by the water around us, but because the earth is so dry, it's not helping us.
So the sun heats the ground heats the air right above it, then that, starts moving, and with dry ground, it can heat up really rapidly and to greater levels. So you got 98 degrees, the forecast for Orlando and Jacksonville and Charleston. You're in the mid-90s. Even Tampa is hot at 91 and Miami at 90.
And it continues as we head into tomorrow. And by the way, there's no stop in this thing. This is a bullet train going full speed ahead. It's going to continue all the way through our Monday.
I mean, look at Orlando. 98 degrees today, the hottest day, but still staying hot in the coming days.
We have record-setting heat in the southeast. Temperatures into the upper 90s. It will be the hottest day of the year.
This is Sue Oriema, Vice President of Kids and Cars. Sue, thanks for joining us this morning. 6 deaths already, and it's only May. Is this unusual?
A huge chunk. We're talking about a third of the deaths are caused when kids are getting into the cars on their own. How can you prevent something like that besides locking?
They want to play. They want to play grown up or get into the car. What about for parents remembering with the record heat that we're going to see? Summer's just around the corner. What are some great tips for parents to overall keep in mind when it comes to hot? Oriema, thank you so much for joining us. You get on autopilot, right? And especially if it's not your routine. I could see how it happens.
Yeah, you could.
If you have a quiet kid.
I would say 99% of the time, Reynolds, it's an accident when something like this happens. A tragic.
Or these capsules just floating around. Do you guys know? I mean, I don't know.
I have no idea. That's all I know.
You just float. Okay, you just float. Yeah, I'm not even sure I want to go over Niagara Falls because do you have a seatbelt on? I mean, all kinds of questions come to mind here. Interesting nonetheless. So I'm glad we're thinking. I'm glad we're innovating. Thinking about safety. Let's think about these temperatures because that certainly has affected our comfort factor over the past 7 days. This is a look back at the country, and you see all of this below average, especially last weekend. Those of you in the southeast were like, what is this, right? It felt much more like February than it felt like May. In the Northeast, we're still dealing with that. The Southwest, to some extent, we're still dealing with some of that coolish stuff, but things are about to change. So let's get you into the pattern where we are right now. This is the water vapor, so we can see the spins of the upper level lows in the jet stream. This is our southwestern guy right here. You see that it's still with us. It was only in California about 4 days ago. It hasn't moved very far, has it? Still with us, affecting our weather. We still actually have some semblance of this upper level low in the Northeast as well, still affecting our weather right here. Things have just been so blocked up right They've not been able to move. We've had this big ridge over the south, and that's still in place, and that's keeping us pretty warm actually in the southeast, feeling much more like July than it is May here into the southeastern states like Georgia and South and North Carolina, certainly Florida, as we've been talking about. We're staying cool again today in the northeast with temperatures running below average, mid-50s, low 60s. That's it. Below average reading for your temperatures, and cloud cover again in the afternoon like we had yesterday. So yeah, not the spring-like day that you might have been hoping for. And the southeast, it's not the spring-like day you might have been hoping for either. It's more like summer. Plus, we've got 98 in Orlando. I mean, this is beyond summer, right? Orlando doesn't get to 98 very often. It's going to be a hot one for us across the Sunshine State, pretty much across the board. Hitting records. Jacksonville tying a record. Orlando breaking a record. Daytona Beach coming close. Savannah, Georgia, 98 degrees. The old record to break is 97, and that was an old one set back in 1955. So a lot of heat in the southeast. You might be wondering, how long is this pattern going to hold on? Because we've been in this pattern, for about a week now. Things are going to change. Now, it's been pretty blocked up here over the Atlantic Ocean, so nothing's really been able to move out. You see, this is our spin. This is our upper level spin in the northeast. It hasn't been able to move out because it's been blocked by this big blocking high that has just been weird the way it's taken shape, right? Things have not been able to move for a week now in this pattern. So we're finally going to see that start to break down as we get into the end of the weekend, although we see another feature move on in here to keep us cool, through the weekend. We don't get to get out of this just yet, but the pattern gets a little less weird, I would say, as we get into the end of the weekend and next week, a little more traditional, right? And now we've got a big trough or dip in the jet stream over the west, a big ridge across the east, and that's going to allow a lot of us to warm back up in the Great Lakes, in parts of the Mid-Atlantic, the Northeast. We'll see how warm we get, but at least temperatures will get closer to average as we get into the end of next week, and a lot of spots well above average, like Chicago. Our temperatures are really going up in the next 7 days. Get ready. We are in the mid-80s by the middle of the following week.